You've probably seen countless articles, podcasts, and videos on TikTok and YouTube about Disney adults. They're a fascinating group of people, typically millennials, who, through various social factors, haven't really outgrown or moved on from the childlike wonder a place like Disney provides. They're a harmless bunch who participate in Disney bounding and visit the Magic Kingdom as often as possible, with some of them going so far as to live inside the Disneyland DMZ and the Golden Oak tract homes, where each house has swapped farmhouse decor for something that looks like if Mickey and Goofy got into flipping houses. They get married at the parks and have full-on panic attacks when they first encounter one of the many beacons of cult capitalism like Toontown or Cinderella's Castle. Most of us probably learned about Disney adults and thought, well, that sure is weird, but they're not hurting anyone, and surely the bar they've set is too high for it to get worse, right? Fucking wrong. I recently learned about Disneyland social clubs, often referred to as Disneyland gangs, and I had just so many questions, but was also not totally surprised for reasons I'll get into in this video. First, I think we should go over how someone becomes so obsessed with a corporation like Disney to the point they find themselves a Disney-bounding adult or being patched in with the Main Street elite. From a purely sociological standpoint, the attachment to a place like Disney and its characters come from nostalgia, identity and community formation, escapism, and consumer culture and rabid brand loyalty. The last two being arguably the most dangerous reasons, as they are often inextricably tied to the other three and prioritize wanton spending that ultimately finances companies and grants them even more concentrated power. Thanks, capitalism. Nostalgia is a powerful tool in marketing and is frequently used to tap into the romanticized past of a demographic and their longing for a quote-unquote simpler time, or just to maintain some level of cultural consistency. With most millennials, myself included, growing up learning many life lessons from The Fox and the Hound, The Lion King, Beauty and the Beast, and attempting to emulate Robin Hood's god-tier Riz, it's hard to disentangle those characters from our own selves. It's even harder when those characters are slapped on lunchboxes and backpacks and plushies you've imprinted on as a child, like a duckling who's lost their mom. They're more than mere extensions of a person. They are Mickey, and Mickey is them. It's an almost religious experience for many Disney fans. The Father, the Son, and the Holy Genie, I guess. Being a Disney adult or part of a social club signals perceived shared values among a group, like how wearing a MAGA hat might signify that you probably believe women shouldn't be able to vote or that all immigrants are criminals. This is where things get kind of messy and convoluted when talking about Disneyland social clubs, who are basically Disney adults who look like they're in a 1%er outlaw motorcycle club like the Hells Angels. The symbols and messaging of wearing a vest, or a cut as it's called in motorcycle clubs, featuring classic MC patches like top and bottom rockers, are at odds with the pastels and chipper cartoon characters associated with Disney. It's a weird mix of cultural appropriation, anti-establishment dress, and pro-corporate activities, which all kind of cancel each other out and make your brain kind of go, And I sort of understand the want to evoke a certain reaction from normies by dressing in punk rock cosplay in a place like Disneyland. The expectations of the average attendee is that Disneyland is a safe space full of wonder and imagination, where they won't run into scary looking gangs of roving punks. Pulling on a pair of combat boots and spiking your hair up into a mohawk might draw the attention of some on any given sidewalk in America, but when you plop Peter Punk and Gotharella in the middle of Disneyland, everyone is going to turn their head or cross Small World Way to avoid interacting with them. The rebellious nature of Disneyland social clubs intimidates regular people or challenges social norms, and I can see how it might be intoxicating, as it can increase a person's sense of empowerment, confidence, pride, and identity. As a former hardcore kid, trashing and criticizing social norms and the arbitrariness of laws and rules in the real world is liberating, as I'm sure it is when these social clubs rock up to Main Street with a crew of a dozen or more of their fellow members and watch as families wearing Mickey ears look on in horror as all black clad gang members approach. Don't do this. It's so stupid. Now, if I were them, I would be more afraid of running into an actual MC while wearing a vest with rockers emblazoned with 1313 Legion or 33rd Alley Cats. As a person who rides a Harley and has learned about the motorcycle scene for my own personal safety, it's a pretty well-known taboo to wear a patched cut when you're not in an actual MC, and that you could get your ass beat by some ex-con on a big fuck you chopper. The different patches on a cut have different meanings. Typically, the rockers designate a claim to a specific territory, and when you have a club name that could easily be confused with an actual club, things could get out of hand pretty quick. These MCs have a lot of pride in their clubs, and it just seems unnecessarily risky to tempt fate by what could be interpreted as mocking an outlaw gang like the Mongols or the pagans, who are not afraid to take part in criminal activities such as distributing cocaine, marijuana, and methamphetamine, interstate theft, assault, intimidation, and murder. At the very least, you might get accosted at a gas station for wearing one, like this guy who pissed off some dork for wearing a Sons of Anarchy vest who wasn't in an actual club.
Anyone ever said anything to you about that?
About what?
That vest?
Occasional people here and there.
Anybody on another motorcycle say anything to you?
No, not really.
You should be real careful wearing that.
That's what I've heard.
I should take it from you right now, but it's the middle of the daytime. I'm just letting you know, though, you shouldn't fucking wear that.
Alright.
Because you didn't earn it. There's a lot of people that died to wear patches on the back of their vest. And the Sons of Anarchy one, you're spitting in their face.
TV show though.
It is just a TV show. And you riding around shits on everybody that fucking worked their ass off for it.
Now, I'm not defending either of these people. Wearing a vest with a fictional biker gang is corny, but so is threatening a stranger over their choice of wardrobe. My point still stands that, in general, it's probably not a good idea. To avoid sounding completely ignorant, anyone should be able to wear whatever they want in public without fear of someone accosting or assaulting them. I don't want to sound like I'm suggesting that this person was asking for it. We have premium X users who like to throw that term around anytime you hear stories of a woman getting sexually assaulted. Well, what was she wearing? A short skirt, you say? Suspicious. People from marginalized communities, including women, constantly get attacked because of the way they dress and how they present themselves, and that's despicable. But there is a difference when you literally wear a sign on your back that could be interpreted as derisive to another group, specifically a group that has no problem engaging in acts of violence. It also might signal to that group that you are of the same caliber of character and also take part in the occasional drug trafficking and assault and battery. Both subcultures of hardcore punks and bikers appeal to what I think is a part of the inherent human condition to seek escape. Just like how we tell stories through movies and TV as a way to, for a brief moment, set aside all the stress and responsibility we carry with us, sometimes against our own will, certain lifestyles appeal to something deep and inexplicable in us that are attractive because of their perceived freedom. Being part of a community like the hardcore punk or motorcycle scene engenders a sense of brotherhood and acceptance of the outcast and downtrodden, as long as you fit into a certain mold and have a certain set of ideals. There is something freeing about getting on your chopper and just riding, or disregarding personal safety, doing the windmill in a pit as a punk. In some ways, it's both a literal freedom and a figurative freedom. The feeling of the wind in your face and the sun on your back, and the ability to skirt traffic laws by lane splitting or parking on the sidewalk rather than obeying some lines painted on the ground. While it might seem silly and rather minuscule, you do feel like you can kind of do whatever you want riding down the tarmac. The figurative freedom comes again from our perceived notion of what motorcycles and choppers represent. Easy Rider, The Wild One, Motorcycle Diaries, and Wild Hogs all manifest and exude this sense of freedom. That with a motorcycle, you can just leave it all behind, and if you're rugged and self-sustainable enough, all you need is a bedroll, a couple of tools, and a decent pair of boots. Each Disneyland social club has its own rules for accepting new members. Some take a vote on new members, while others have a probationary period, during which the prospective member can wear a vest but cannot wear the club's patch. Another too close for comfort similarity with actual outlaw clubs. This is what's called prospecting, where they're expected to be a glorified gopher. Go for this, go for that, You get it. They exist on the bottom of the food chain in a club and are constantly being watched by patched officers. Basically, you're like the new convict on the block, and there's a bunch of tedious rules meant to break your will that is honestly not too dissimilar from military recruitment and training tactics. Why the fuck you'd want to be associated with such a position or organization is beyond me. The founder of Flynn's Riders drafted a constitution for his club that requires prospective members go through a 3-month evaluation period before the club's council members vote on admission. All just to get a vest that says Tigger Army on the back. Like Tiger Army, punk, right. So what do these social clubs do together anyway? A favorite activity is doing ride takeovers, where members try to fill every vehicle of an attraction, and according to Rebel Wilson, a self-described Disney adult, stealing the apple from the Snow White ride as initiation.
Did you notice that there's actually gangs at Disneyland? There are like these gangs of adults. They have like cool names like the White Rabbits or Children of Thanos, Coco Locos. Like, yeah, they have all these gangs, and sometimes they wear matching vests.
Yeah.
And they walk around and like do gang stuff
So there's,
inside Disneyland.
wait, there's like an initiation where you have to like stab Goofy or something?
It was actually, one of the initiations was you had to steal the apple from the Snow White ride, and the apple kept getting stolen so many times that they had to make it a hologram.
They also swap patches and pins like their Magic the Gathering cards, and sometimes engage in mafia-like tactics, just like actual motorcycle clubs, which is not surprising when you borrow from far-right Nazi naming conventions for your social club like Turbo Jugend. But for the most part, the different social clubs get along when they pass each other at the park. We think it's great talking to and meeting other social clubs, says VJ Escote, an original member of the Pix Pack. But on occasion, things do get out of hand. A civil lawsuit was filed September 11th of 2017 in Orange County Superior Court, alleging the White Rabbits tried to extort a member of the Main Street Fire Station 55 Club. Name's too long. The head of one club accused another of using gangster-like tactics to try to collect protection money for a charity fundraiser at the park. John and Leslie Sarno, the founders of Main Street Fire Station 55, name's too long, claimed in the lawsuit that they planned a memorial walk and fundraiser for September 11th in 2016 at Disneyland to benefit the families of firefighters killed during 9/11. A week before the event, John Sarno was approached by Jacob Fite, the head of the White Rabbit Social Club, backed by 4 of his fellow club members, and demanded $500 to protect the event participants. If he didn't, the White Rabbits threatened to prevent Sarno from ever entering the park again, I assume by sprinkling Sleepy Time fairy dust on him like Tinkerbell. The lawsuit names 19 members of the White Rabbits, accusing them of defamation, invasion of privacy, conspiracy, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. The suit also named Disneyland, saying the park failed to take action against the offending club. I'm not sure what Walt would think of big groups in matching biker vests walking down Main Street, said Matthew Gatula, a 28-year-old who visits the park frequently. Ultimately, Sarno didn't pay up, and Fite and his allies have since spread malicious rumors about him on social media, Disneyland social club sites, and a podcast hosted by Fite himself. The suit stated that Fite distributed Sarno's medical information to unauthorized users in violation of HIPAA laws. The lawsuit also names Kaiser as a defendant, claiming the medical insurance company failed to protect Sarno's medical information. However, Fite alleges that the lawsuit was just retaliation on Sarno's behalf after Fite began raising questions about Sarno's character among other Disneyland social clubs, suggesting that Sarno had been misleading club members about his background to raise money for charitable causes. This is all just so stupid. Dressing a certain way, like, say, you're part of a racketeering gang, can have a psychological effect on our behavior. Studies have shown that what we wear can affect our confidence levels, decision-making abilities, and even physical performance. For example, wearing formal attire has been linked to increased feelings of power and authority in professional settings, which would explain why CEOs can't help themselves from dumping barrels of toxic waste into the ocean with just reckless abandon. So it's no wonder someone cosplaying as a member of a biker gang might get a little bold and feel empowered to threaten another club member. Despite all this drama, these social clubs consider the parks their home and go above and beyond to interact with cast members and help keep an eye out for guest misbehavior or other issues. Because what Disneyland really needs is vigilante groups of intimidating hall monitors who might then demand you cough up some dough for said enforcement. You're not Batman. That's Warner Brothers. Get your pop culture IP ownership straight, guys. According to Disney Fanatic, the parks have their own secret police and emergency services, so there's really no need to put your hands on the chest of a child who stepped over the line like a self-righteous mall cop. I really also just don't like the idea of these fully grown Uber fans bothering the shit out of the poor employees who work as Sleeping Beauty or Kylo Ren either. They're not exactly there for the adults and are probably teenagers or theater kids just trying to do their job, like Jake Novak. Remember what happened to him? Places like Disneyland are, at the end of the day, companies that cater to children and preteens. As much as people might disagree because some of the movies have adult humor that goes over the kid's head, or that you can't separate your own personal overwhelming nostalgia from the social contract of being a normal human being when interacting with a guy performing as Gaston, doesn't mean it's made for mom and dad or some 30-year-old man-child. Disney is simply making 4-quadrant movies that are typically categorized as family-friendly, which means they're beholden to appeal to children first and foremost. 60 to 70% of their content is aimed directly at children, and I don't want to hear the phrase, well, we've all got a child inside of us. Stop putting children inside of you. What are you doing? These selfish lunatics ruin the experience for the actual intended audience, thereby depriving them of what should just be a fun day at a theme park where they get to meet that anthropomorphic idiot dog. It's rude and weird to think that Disneyland is your personal playground and that you have some ownership over how it's operated. These social clubs have been around since as early as 2012, with the Black Death crew taking the law into their own hands by chasing down drunk guests. Adam Getz, a general contractor from San Jose, is their leader and founder, which is the largest and oldest of the more than 100 Disneyland social clubs. Nathan Rice, the founder of Walt's Misfits, another early social club, said about their attire, "We wanted something we could be comfortable in, that we could wear on hot days, and that was bold and spoke to our acceptance of our semi-outsider stance with the Disney fandom," and admits that the popularity of Sons of Anarchy had a lot to do with that idea being reached by multiple groups around the same time. Michael Stout, an LA-based barber, because of course there's at least one barber among them, is the co-founder of the Main Street Elite. "We started the Main Street Elite with the intention of bringing people together for their common love, some would say obsession, with Disney and the Disney parks. Being heavily tattooed and having somewhat of an alternative image compared to the average Disney goer, it was hard for us to mesh with the families you usually see at the park. So we decided we'll make our own Disney family." Oh my God, wearing a short sleeve shirt in this garage was a bad idea. I'm freezing. Looking back on my own youth hanging out with tattooers, barbers, and hardcore bands, the Disney adult punk crossover is actually pretty common. I've met loads of punks with tattoos of the poison apple from Sleeping Beauty or the Lost Boys who are also super into horror movies and body modification. There seems to be a healthy dose of tongue-in-cheek humor and no fucks given attitude when it comes to the punk crowd, where they find the juxtaposition of Disney characters and the macabre almost humorous and a way to express an anti-establishment sentiments through the alteration of capitalist iconography. Punk culture is like the opposite of the new age, your body is a temple mentality, where getting a dumbass tattoo of, say, mummy wearing sunglasses is a way to dismantle the notion that in order to live a fulfilling life, you mustn't partake in anything fun or amusing by working out 2 hours a day at 5 a.m. and eating nothing but rice cakes. Let me just fix my sock, because that's gonna bother me. What is life if you can't enjoy simple indulgences or a stupid inside joke after all? On top of that, the punk scene shares similarities with Disney adults in that they all seem to suffer from Peter Pan syndrome. I can't tell you how many times that phrase was thrown around by the older jaded punks when I was a teenager, but they weren't necessarily wrong either. It's a pop psychology term used to describe an adult who is socially immature and trapped in their childhood youth. The term has been used informally by both lay people and some psychology professionals since the 1983 publication of The Peter Pan Syndrome: Men Who Have Never Grown Up by Dr. Dan Kiley. Dr. Kiley got the idea for the Peter Pan syndrome after noticing that, like the famous character, many of the troubled teenage boys he treated had problems growing up and accepting adult responsibilities. This trouble continued on into adulthood, as is exemplified in both Disney adults, social clubs, and the hardcore punk and motorcycle scenes. Many 20-something punks in the mid to late 2000s were skateboarding skateboarding and working menial jobs and had no intention or drive to become functioning members of society. I want to make it clear, there is absolutely nothing wrong with any of that. I skateboard on occasion myself and have talked about how terrible having a job is and the problems with the 9-to-5 work world in general. There is no right or wrong way to live, and opting out of social constructs can be a way to start the wheel of change in any given society. But there is also always a sense of unhappiness and misery among the most fervent and annoying anti-establishment punks, like those suffering from Peter Pan syndrome had given up and accepted their fate almost out of spite. Disneyland social clubs, with their MC-inspired attire and their fervent devotion to Disney, presents one of the most bizarre cultural phenomenons I've ever stumbled across. Members like Rhiannon Mim from the Wonderlanders acknowledge their obsession as somewhat eccentric, calling it a crazy obsession. So at least there's that. This self-awareness, however, doesn't always extend to a full understanding of the implications of their chosen uniform. Dressing in biker gang vests complete with patches and rockers while expressing First Amendment rights and a shared identity can be misconstrued and lead to unintended consequences, which absolutely should not be the case, but that's not the world we live in. Bikers aren't exactly known for their open-mindedness or being the most diverse group. The parallels between these social clubs and real outlaw motorcycle clubs highlight a lack of knowledge about the deep-rooted traditions and serious implications of wearing such attire when you're not part of that group. Like when white people try to pull off protective hairstyles like dreadlocks and cornrows. It's bound to piss someone off regardless of if it's justified or not. It's just risky and borders on the irresponsible, given that people have been verbally assaulted at gas stations and probably worse by actual MC members. It'd be like wearing Nazi regalia solely for its aesthetic appeal and disregarding its loaded historical context and cultural significance. No one said shit to Lemmy Kilmister about his weird Nazi obsession, but that's because he was Lemmy. The guy eating funnel cake before getting on Splash Mountain isn't intimidating anyone from keeping their mouth shut or potentially punching his lights out when they see he's got a Jolly Pirates rocker on his vest. It just demonstrates a disconnect between the symbolism of the attire and the wearer's understanding or respect for its origins. The members of these Disneyland clubs, in their pursuit of community and nostalgia, unintentionally blur the lines between innocent fandom and the appropriation of a subculture that's not entirely their own. The amalgamation of Disney fanaticism with the hardcore punk aesthetic reflects a unique intersection of subcultures that can be as confusing to onlookers as it is meaningful to the wearer. While these social clubs may contribute to the vibrancy and diversity of the Disneyland experience, it's important for members to remain conscious of the broader implications of their fashion choices in a world where certain groups are more tribalistic, unwelcoming, and defensive than others. This awareness is particularly important given the potential for misinterpretation or conflict, especially in a family-oriented environment like Disneyland, which still has people getting into fistfights who aren't even part of a Disneyland social club or a 1%er club. They're just pissed about, I don't know, it being hot and the lines being too long. That's the video. Thanks so much for watching. And if you made it this far, that means you're special and a really cool person. Be sure to like and share and subscribe if you wanna. You can also go to Instagram and follow me over there. It's just at Harland Spinks. I'm pretty sure I'm doing the Star Wars crawl right now for you to go there and check out all the stuff I post about the channel and funny memes that I find, and also just what I'm getting up to. If you watched my last video about Armageddon and Deep Impact, thanks so much. I knew it wasn't gonna do very well. But, you know, share that one with your friends. That took a lot of work and I really had fun doing it. And I would like to continue to do it. But it'd be great if it got more than, you know, a couple hundred views. Until next time, vanish, bye, shoo.